25 BC, the mighty Roman Empire, fresh from conquering Egypt and defeating Cleopatra, turned south toward the rich lands of Nubia. They expect easy tribute, gold, slaves, and submission. Instead, they meet a one-eyed queen leading 30,000 warriors in a surprise attack. She sacks Roman cities, enslaves garrisons, and buries the bronze head of Emperor Augustus under her palace steps so she can step on Rome's god every day. For 5 years, this African queen fights the world's greatest army to a standstill, forcing Augustus himself to negotiate peace on her terms. Her name? Queen Amanirenas, Kandake of Kush, the one-eyed warrior queen who beat Rome and saved her kingdom. The Kingdom of Kush and Rise of the Kandakes. The Kingdom of Kush, centered at Meroe in modern Sudan, was one of Africa's greatest civilizations, ruling the Nile Valley for over 1,000 years. Long before Rome rose to power, Kush was a powerhouse, famous for ironworking, some of the earliest in the world, vast gold mines, and towering pyramids sharper and more numerous than Egypt's. In the 8th century BC, Kushite pharaohs conquered Egypt itself, establishing the 25th dynasty, the Black Pharaohs, who ruled as divine kings. By Amanirenas' time, 40 to 10 BC, Kush was independent again, a wealthy, iron-strong kingdom that blended Egyptian traditions with African innovation. Ruling over it were powerful queens called Kandake, meaning great woman or queen regnant. These weren't consorts or figureheads. They ruled alone, led armies, and were worshipped as divine. Inscriptions show Kandakes commanding troops, smiting enemies, and receiving tribute. Amanirenas, full title, Amanirenas Kor and Kandake, was one of the fiercest. Roman historian Strabo described her as a masculine woman blind in one eye, likely lost in a battle, a scar she wore as a badge of courage. She ruled alongside her husband Tiridates and son Prince Akinadad, but when war came, she would lead alone. The spark of war, Roman overreach, and Kushite defiance. When Rome annexed Egypt in 30 BC after defeating Cleopatra, Augustus cast his eyes south. He imposed heavy taxes on Kushite borderlands, tribute in gold, slaves, and goods. Rome saw Kush as weak, stretched thin, ripe for domination. Amanirenas saw weakness in Rome. Legions tied up in Arabia and Parthia, borders lightly guarded. Around 25 BC, while Roman prefect Aelius Gallus was away on a disastrous Arabian campaign, Amanirenas struck first. 30,000 Kushite warriors, famed archers, spearmen, cavalry, swept north into Roman Egypt. They captured Syene, Aswan, Elephantine, and Philae. Enslaved inhabitants, toppled statues of Augustus. Most famous trophy? A bronze head of the emperor, ripped from a statue and carried back to Meroe. There, Amanirenas buried it under the steps of a temple to victory, so every worshipper would trample Rome's god daily. Rome was furious. New prefect, Gaius Petronius, marched south with 10,000 men. He sacked Napata, enslaved thousands, and reached Primus, Quasir Ibram. Tiridates died in battle. Some sources say Prince Akinadad too. Amanirenas, now one-eyed from a Roman arrow or spear, took full command. She regrouped and counterattacked. The Long War and Turning Point. Petronius claimed victory, but the Kushites harassed his supply lines relentlessly. Amanirenas besieged Primus, forcing the Romans into a costly stalemate. Exhausted, Petronius retreated to the First Cataract. Amanirenas sent envoys to Augustus himself on the island of Samos. Legends say they brought golden arrows, a gift for peace or weapons you'll need for war. Augustus, facing threats from Parthia and stretched thin across the empire, agreed to favorable terms. Rome withdrew to the First Cataract. No tribute from Kush. Returned captured territories. Peace lasted centuries. The Meroe head, Augustus's bronze, survives today in the British Museum, eyes intact, a silent witness to Kush's defiance. Victory and legacy. Amanirenas ruled until 10 BC, reforming Kushite government and paying off any lingering debts. Her stela showed her with bound prisoners, commemorating Roman defeats. She preserved Kushite independence for generations. Kush declined in the 4th century AD, but the Kandakes inspired later African leaders. Today, Amanirenas is a symbol of resistance against empire. A one-eyed warrior queen who stared down Rome and made Augustus blink. In a world that underestimated African power, women rulers, and barbarian kingdoms, she proved them wrong. But Amanirenas showed that even the mightiest empire could be forced to negotiate, retreat, and remember the cost of arrogance. All from a queen who refused to bow. Subscribe for more warriors that take the fight to their enemy. Next video, Alcibiades, the bisexual traitor who betrayed everyone and still won the war.